Zoom out about 2 weeks ago. Let's go back. About 2 weeks ago, it seemed as though the Flyers were going to get their pick of whatever center was left at number 6. So everybody kind of knew Michael Misa was going to go at 2. They figured that Frondell was going to be gone, although there was a chance San Jose was going to get weird and take Frondell, and then maybe there'd be a feeding frenzy for the number 3 overall pick. And if somehow Misa fell to 4 with Utah, you'd almost guarantee there was going to be a feeding frenzy. So you knew Misa, Frondell, Desnoyers was probably going to be gone. There were rumors about Brady Martin jumping up on boards. O'Brien was also going to be there. But then you had Schaefer was going to go first. So it felt like no matter what, the Flyers were going to get a center at number 6. Now, if you remember, they went into the season, or they went into the draft lottery with the 4th best odds of getting the number 1 overall pick. They got jumped twice, once by the Islanders, once by the Utah Mammoth. Felt kind of like a gut punch. And in a weird way, if things go the way that it certainly seems like a lot of people think it's going to now, the Flyers might have actually lucked out by moving down 2 spots. Because if they had remained at number 4, high probability they take a center. And if that had happened, would they have traded up from 22 to 12? Would they have taken a defenseman? Could they have taken a Jackson Smith? Could they have taken an Aitchison? I don't know. Maybe. But go back 2 weeks. The team had a massive hole at center. And they had a massive hole at center for the upcoming season and beyond. And they had no one really internally who was going to be able to fill that hole. Unless you were very bullish on what Jet Lashenko was going to be and that he was going to come in and maybe be your 3C. And that you were going to really hope that Couturier could be your 1C with maybe some reduced minutes, but he'd be your 1C and maybe Cates would be your 2C, which is putting a lot of pressure there. So before the draft, the Flyers go out and they acquire Trevor Zegras for Ryan Poehling, wonderful bottom 6 forward, 45th overall pick, second rounder, one of the 4 second rounders they had in this draft, and a 4th round pick next year. And all of a sudden, while there were some tempered expectations, all right, they want Zegras to play center. There's a chance he's going to play wing. His most productive time in Anaheim was as a center. Okay, fine. The belief was the Flyers are going to give him every opportunity to play center. We had Tocchet on, and we had Zegras on the Snow the Goalie Draft Day show, which, again, you can go find on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We had both of those guys on. Zegras talked about wanting to play center. Tocchet talked about wanting to play Zegras at center. It very much seems that they are aligned. Zegras is going to play center. He's going to have every opportunity to succeed at center. What that essentially did was say, all right, we know for a fact then that Couturier, Cates, and Zegras are going to be your top 3 centers. And then whoever's going to be your 4C, it doesn't really matter. If Lashenko blows you out of the water, maybe he becomes your 4C. Not sure that's a great role for him. Do you then put Cates at 4C and Lashenko 3C? Whatever. But it gave you at least a stopgap, right? It at least gave you something solidified down the middle of the ice for the upcoming season. And then he's going to be an RFA, so presumably longer term. Hell of a lot of skill. If he can be a little bit more of a sound 200-foot player, could end up being a massive deal for this team. They solidified the center position, and so as of 2 weeks ago, it would have seemed insane that the Flyers could have taken Porter Martone. In fact, everybody that you talk about, right, everybody that you talk to leading into that draft before the Zegras trade said, oh, it's going to be a center. Without a doubt, it's a center. Martone might be the best player on the board at 6, but they're going to take a center because they need centers. They get Zegras, and then the whispers start to come out. Martone could be in play. Now, if you remember, 2 weeks ago, I had Adam Kimmelman on the show. Raved about Martone. Martinez was on the show. Raved about Martone. No matter who you talk to, 6'3" winger, legitimate upside, and many believe not only has top line potential, but could be a star. We're not just talking about, Porter Martone is going to be, a top line winger on a bad team where somebody has to play those minutes. No. In the time leading up to the draft and then coming out of the draft, there are certainly people who believe in the Flyers organization and around and outside of it that Porter Martone could actually be a star. Not just a guy, not just he's a top 6 forward, it all depends. Star. So, now you zoom out and you say, okay, you've got Michkov, who has the highest upside of anybody on the team. You now have this kid Martone, who, while I don't think he will play significant minutes for the Flyers this season, maybe he makes the team out of camp, right? Gets to play the 7-8 games and then goes down. Or maybe, like Lashenko did last year, or maybe he's a late season call-up, unless he blows your socks off and he's with the team all year, which I would find kind of surprising, but who the hell knows? 6'3" winger. Michkov, smaller guy, totally different kind of player. You now are pretty damn solidified. You could have two studs on the wing. Zegras, I'm not going to tell you is a bona fide 1C or is going to develop into a bona fide 1C, but he's got the vision. Taka came on the show and was like, hey, forehand and backhand passing, not going to compare him to Draisaitl, but like probably one of the best backhands from a creative perspective outside of Draisaitl. Very high praise from the coach. There is a belief that this forward core has the ability to go to another level. And so you look at Martone and you go, all right, if he doesn't play for the Flyers much at 25-26, is it a failure of a pick? Of course not. Because what we do know is Schaefer maybe has a chance to play in the NHL this season. Maybe. There's still a chance that New York looks at it and says, we're going to let him play 1 year within the organization. We're going to let him play elsewhere for a season. And then in 26-27, Schaefer's going to be on the Islanders. Entirely possible. Same thing might happen with HSN, although that might be 2 years out instead of 1 year out. They feel very confident in their guys. The centers in this draft, whether it's Misa, Frondell, O'Brien, Denoyer, Hagens, there seemed to be no belief anywhere, not a single soul. Prognosticators, pundits, scouts, nary a soul seemed to believe, oh yeah, of those like 5 centers, 2 or 3 of them are going to be in the NHL this season. Absolutely not. Now, is it possible that a team gets desperate or they want to try to like drum up some interest in the team and they're going to roll out their young center for the first like 7-8 games of the season and then maybe if he impresses, he stays? Sure. Possible. But it felt like if you were going to draft a center in this draft, that guy wasn't going to play for you this year. And he might not even play for you in 26-27 because he's still going to need time to develop. With Martone, there is a belief that if it's not this year, 26-27, he has a legitimate path to playing here and to being an impact player. You think about like what Michkov was able to do at age 19 and then turned 20. You think about what Michkov was able to do in his first season in North America, in the National Hockey League, playing for a not great team with an absolutely putrid power play. On a good team, on a respectable team with a even remotely competent power play, Michkov probably has 30 goals a season ago. He's going to take another step this year. Everybody on this team is going to take another step. And if Zegras ends up becoming the guy that the Flyers have hoped for a few years when they've been, kind of testing the waters on a potential trade with Anaheim, if he ends up becoming the guy that a lot of people believe he could be, that sets up Martone in a big way. Maybe not this year, but next year. That's huge. Again, think about all the bad teams we've had to suffer through. Think about all of the piss-poor squads that have had to go out on that ice at Wells Fargo Center and have underwhelmed. Like, you set the bar low, but holy shit, it somehow got worse. Now you look at this team and you say, there's legitimate upside here. There are legitimate stars in the making on this team. Now, I don't think they're going to be in the lottery again next year unless they go out and acquire somebody's pick. I really don't think the Flyers are going to be in the lottery. So you're not going to have a shot at Gavin McKenna. But what you will have is a young nucleus to actually build around. And everybody around this organization keeps pointing to 2026. We have a lot of money. 2026, we have a lot of money. There's a lot of money. Did we mention? A lot of money. The Flyers are going to get really frisky next offseason. They have now fortified their ranks. They have now added a ton of size. They took, 9 guys in the draft? I think all but one of them is like 6'2" or taller. Bananagrams. The size on this team is nuts. And Amico's 6'6"? I think was he the tallest guy they drafted? Like, it's absolute lunacy. This team got bigger. Now, did they overcorrect? Did the Flyers, did they pass up on best player available because they wanted to add size? I don't know if I'd go that far. But, Carter Amico's 6'6". Was he the best player available? Some say yes. Will he ultimately be that guy? I have no idea. Did I watch Jack Murdoch? No, I didn't. But he's another massive body. He's another big boy. They went for size in this draft. We'll see if it pays dividends. Just because you follow the Chip Kelly methodology of big people beat up little people, it's not a guarantee it's going to work. It's not a guarantee that this is going to be the best draft ever. It doesn't mean that this team is all of a sudden going to compete for a Stanley Cup in the next 2 years. But they're certainly on their way to being a respectable team with legitimate elite upside. At least some players, positionally, elite upside. And for a fan base that's had to deal with a bevy of bad teams and very poor talent, this is probably the most exciting team that we will see take the ice in like a decade. Let that one sink in.